And now for the tale of the tape in this heavyweight showdown between the Vampire Coast, who's going to be led by Count Noctilus, and the High Elves, who are going to be led by Teclis. So guys, we're going to be coming in with the dreaded double Colossus build, and I actually think it's very competitive against the High Elves. So you can see here we do have the double Necrofax Colossus, which are very solid. Firstly, because of their range, and secondly, because they are actually kind of mobile for an artillery piece. So they're able to outrun the archers, and I think that the Shadow Warriors themselves are pretty quick with 38 speed. So if these guys want to close the distance and really put a lot of peppering on top of your Colossus, if you actually turn and run, you can create that separation, use the buffer of your zombie pirate deckhand mobs, and really screen them out and get some pretty good value. So Colossus are good against enemy archers. If the High Elves want to really pressure your back line with a bunch of Silver Helms and Reavers and maybe even some Wild Dragon Princes, which you don't really see too much in this matchup, the Colossus are going to be able to just take them apart. And if they want to go with Dragons and Phoenixes, these guys are quite good against big targets as well. So I really think one of the staples of this matchup, in my opinion, and there's a bunch of different ways to play it. I mean, if you want to play the High Elves and go with like a blitzy build, you can use deckhand mobs, you can use crabs and depth guard and just go super crazy in that manner. But this is kind of the way I'd like to play with these big boys here. So the double Colossus, of course, one of them is going to be Count Noctilus over here with his summons and his Wrath's Moondial. And whenever I go with the Colossus, the High Elf matchup tends to be very long and grindy, so I really like to have the Gunnery Wight. Number one, he's a pretty good little sniper, so, well, I guess that should be number two, but he's actually pretty good at sniping the characters and the heroes and can put some decent damage output with his 434 missile damage on that big old long rifle of his. And on top of that, he does have the extra powder. And that's pretty much the only ability I bring. I think I brought, yeah, this is just the extra powder, but it's actually called more powder, excuse me. But this one replenishes the ammunition of the Titans here, the Colossus, and it's very strong because this battle is long, it's grindy against the High Elves, and typically you do run out of ammo, and the Colossus becomes so much weaker when they're out of ammo. For the front line, we got the standard zombie pirate deckhand mob just to hold things in place. They're cheap and they do the trick. We got some halberds on the flanks to deal with Reavers and Silver Helms and all sorts of flank pressure from the High Elves. And honestly, these guys do have some decent armor piercing, so if they have some armor on the roster, you know, deckhand mobs with polearms can do the trick. In the back, we do have one gun, the Black Spot, and these guys are kind of an exception. Typically, guns are quite terrible against the High Elves simply because they have 145 range, and Shadow Warriors and Archers, which most people will bring in this matchup, are going to be able to tear you to pretty much to shreds, yeah, with their 180 range against your 145. In the back, we have two mortars. This is another staple of this matchup. And firstly on this map too, I believe this map is called the Alpine Ridge, and there's definitely some line of sight issues. I do have some Fellbats getting some scouting, and you can see the mortars actually doing some pretty decent damage in conjunction with the Colossus so far, but the mortars don't have line of sight issues. You can shoot up and over, and you can usually just have that steady pressure over the course of the entire game on top of the Shadow Warriors and the other archer units, and even against Spearmen. I mean, mortars do a good job, so I really think they're a staple of this matchup. So that's my entire build there. And in the forest, well, not the entire build, we got 3 Scurvy Dogs. So one here, and I believe there's one hidden over here. And we have another sneaky dog somewhere that I can't even, yeah, here it is, I couldn't remember where I put it. And on top of that, 2 Fellbats. Fellbats for scouting purposes. Shadow Warriors are very common, and yeah, we'll take a look at the High Elf build. So Shadow Warriors are a very good pick here. Firstly, if I do attack them with Scurvy Dogs and Fellbats, which are some of the main tools for backline disruption, these guys are going to be able to fight back. 38, 34, and 32 for their respective combat stats. 180 range, so they're going to be able to just outrange and take apart my guns and even put some pressure on the Colossus. And they really do shut down the deck dropper? Yeah, deck dropper with handgun play. So I like these quite a bit here from Falcon. And for the rest of his force, he's got spears in the back, a couple white lines, just in case I do go with the depth guard blitz. It's good to kind of keep it honest and get a couple white lines. He does have some Silver Helms as well, and it looks like he's not going to be opting for the shields, probably knowing that I'm probably not going to bring standard guns against his archers. And it looks like over here he has Silver Helms with shields, and these two do have shields. But anyways, he has Teclis here with the Flaming Sword of Ruin to trigger the Kindle Flame. I don't know if he has any Kindle Flame synergies. If he had Sisters of Averlorn, it'd be really strong. But anyways, Flaming Sword of Ruin, it still does give a big damage boost to the archers and whatever units he wants. He's got the Nets of Amachok and the Enfeebling Foe. So there's going to be some feeble foes here on the battlefield, and that is pretty much it for his army. So very scary stuff. Archer's very, very efficient against the Vampire Coast roster. He's got some cab to cause some disruption. The biggest issue for him, I think, is going to be taking down the big Colossus because he doesn't have a ton of anti-large. But still, the volume of fire from the Shadow Warriors can definitely do it. So the battle's underway here. The Colossus dropping some thunder. The Mortar's also getting some really good value against the Shadow Warriors, but you can see they're going to be going in and taking some big shots here at the Colossus. And look at that. Like I said, I mean, really generating some solid value. And it looks like he's also going to be blitzing through here using the Silver Helms, who are going to be getting caught with some of the Overwatch fire from the Black Spot. So these are the unshielded variant here, so they're going to be taking, you know, especially quite a bit of damage. In the meantime, Silver Helm's coming over here, and my dogs are going to be slipping in the back. A very big shot coming down from the Colossus. But suddenly, this is a very, very scary start. The Shadow Warriors definitely caught me off guard, just being right in front of my army. My Colossus, I should have had a little bit more back set here. The Silver Helms are going to be charging in, and the Colossus is probably, yeah, 3,000 HP. It's getting very, very low. In the meantime, my bats are going to be charging in. I have dogs coming here, and a third group of dogs around the back. So there's going to be a ton of pressure. Now, Falcon, of course, being the savvy veteran here, is going to be having some pretty good defense. He has the white lines here. He has spears in reserve, so he has ample troops. So what I really need to do is kind of wear down his front line, do a lot of damage, and force him to pull his reserves, his white lines, and his other troops into the main battle. Now right now I'm going to be using an Invocation of Nehek on the Colossus, just a single target trying to top him off, and he does drop out a couple of the deckhand mobs to kind of prevent the pursuit here. But for the most part, we are kind of stabilizing here. The guns are helping out quite a bit. Noctilus is shooting downtown and tearing apart the Silverhelms. Gunnery White doing his job, but man, look at these Shadow Warriors just tear apart these zombie-powered deckhand mobs. So definitely some spooky stuff. I'm going to be pulling some halberds from reserve, which is a little bit of a mistake because it actually does open up the back line. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pull these ones, rotate these ones back and around, but Falcon responds very quickly with the Silverhelms with shields, and you're probably going to be getting a free charge into this mortar here. But in the meantime, the Colossus is still doing a great job. We're tearing apart the Silverhelms, doing a ton of damage, and on top of that, the backline harass is going pretty well. Fellbats have gotten in here, the doggies are just waiting in the prowl, just prowling in the shadows, and the deck droppers, not deck droppers, but the big old Colossus is also getting some steady damage. What's really cool about the Necrofex too is they can shoot while they're moving. So you can see even when I'm running with this Necrofex Colossus, he's still going to be shooting into the Spearmen or whatever he can get a good angle on. But the Shadow Warriors have moved forward, and they're just raining just fire down on my Colossus, going after Count Noctilus. So the net of Amtalk has been popped, but I'm a little bit out of range, and I do have some bats disrupting and a couple other tools coming in, and I'm trying to get the dogs around. You can see Falcon doing a very good job of defending his forces. He has the white lines here and white lines here. Definitely not too many openings, but in what's going well is they're very blobbed up, right? They're in this very kind of blobby formation. The mortars are tearing them apart. The Colossus is still doing a ton of damage, even though he's taking fire right back. Now the other one is back online, so I'm quite happy about this situation. I can simply pull him back, sit back here, and hopefully get some value. Look at that damage. There's a massive blast coming down on those Silverhelms right there. Halberd's here actually doing a little bit of work against Teclis. Looks like he got tied up right there, but I do have the Gunnery White helping out as well with his long rifle, and Count Noctilus should be able to come in here and peg leg some of these guys to death. So they're going to be getting terrified off. So right now, as it stands, I have one mortar online. I did actually try and run with the crew, but they're going to be getting back on. And unfortunately, I did lose the other mortar to some of the Silverhelm pressure. But the bounce power is pretty even. I did summon a group of zombie-powered gunnery mobs just to kind of absorb some of the ammunition. But the dog harass is going really well. I've just been kind of doing loops and just finding openings, getting onto these guys and trying to chase off the archers. And you can see here, this group is just going to feast. I mean, that is a ton of Shadow Warriors. We have 28 right there. We have another 33 running away. So definitely some very, very juicy targets for the Scurvy Dogs. And yeah, they've been doing a great job, but the mortars continuing to take out models. And if we look at the bounce of power, I am slightly ahead on the bounce of power as the Shadow Warriors are just getting pounded in the back line by the mortars. And of course, the dogs just feasting like the heathen kings of old. These guys are going to be jumping in there. And yeah, you can see these are just standard archers, actually. So these guys are going to be running off here. So in the front line, these zombie-powered deckhand mobs are holding pretty firm, but Falcon's still keeping the pressure on. These Shadow Warriors just kind of sitting in and poking down my deckhand mobs and really opening up the backline pressure. But the Colossus have been able to stabilize, which is one of my big saving graces here. But some white lines are going to be pushing through. Looks like the white line's going to be going back here, trying to get onto the mortar. But I believe I'm going to be using a Wraith Storm right here to just drop some hot thunder on these guys. And you can see it does some pretty good damage. Definitely not bad. Takes out about 5 or 6 models. Does some decent HP damage. But right now I'm going to be turning all my resources because if this guy's able to get back here, shut down the mortar, that's going to be pretty ugly. But I've been very, very conservative with my summons this game. I believe I only used 1 or 2 over the course of the whole battle. I still have Roth's Moondial, so I did some of the deckhand mobs here who got their they got their cutlasses out. They're going to be fighting. Of course, white lions are a vastly superior infantry unit, but nonetheless they should be able to hold. They're also allowing some Overwatch fire to come in from these black spot gunnery mobs here in the back. So in the meantime, Teclis is lurking about, but we did get some huge damage to Teclis, and the Gunnery White was actually able to sit on Teclis for a minute or two there and get some really beautiful sniping. So you can see Teclis here, he's at about 281 HP. He's running, and he might get popped here. I remember putting all of the Colossus fire on him, just trying to finish him off and really break the High Elf army. He is able to take just one of those cannonballs right there, but I believe the other cannonball in a moment is going to be popping to him. Oh man, 100 HP. It's getting so incredibly low, and he is now out of range of my Gunnery White right here. And if you look, the Shadow Warriors are scooting forward. It looks like they're actually out of ammunition. So these Shadow Warriors only have 5 shots left. Teclis is able to kind of squeak away. He might actually be able to come back here. It's going to be a pretty close little situation. Now the High Elves, even though the bounce power is my favorite, are kind of clamping forward, and really just kind of the layers of my undead onion here are being peeled. Definitely very smelly stuff going on. But the zombie powered deckhand mobs with polearms, the last of my reserves are going to be moving forward, and thankfully I still have Noctilus as well as this other Colossus. And you can see the ammunition on my Noctilus as well as my Necrofex Colossus is very, very healthy because of the damn Gunnery White. In the back, I did see Teclis running, and these dogs have just been feasting all day. They're up to 34 kills against mostly archers and Shadow Warriors, but the doggies are able to feast on Teclis, so he's going to be taken out there and sent to another dimension by those Scurvy Dogs who, man, these guys are really the MVPs of this game. Just this one group has just been harassing and taking out all those retreating units, which, in a very close game, is going to make all the difference. So in the frontline fight, Count Noctilus is going to be popping his Arcane Conduit right here to get that Winds of Magic back up. Shadow Warriors are going to be engaging in melee here, but for the most part, I don't think he's going to have enough stopping power. He has a lot of spears and other tools like that, but I still have plenty of chaff units on the ground with these polearms and some deckhand mobs over here. And the Gunnery White also is no slouch in melee. He does have pretty decent combat stats. He has 34, 38, and 400, so not bad for a zombie. he should be able to kind of fend off these Shadow Warriors here with his Cutlass or throwing oranges or whatever it is he likes to do with melee. So Count Noctis is going to be moving in. The More Powder has been activated, which does give him the extra powder trait, which means he's going to be hitting quite a bit harder with his cannonballs here, and it's probably going to be, for the most part, a terror route against most of these white lines and most of these other high health troops. There are some spearmen coming in the flanks. Silverhelm's also pushing in as well, but the Scurvy Dogs have done the last of their just deserves here, and they've been able to take out the Shadow Warriors. From there, they're going to be piling into these Shadow Warriors right there. So yeah, it's mostly just spearmen, white lines, a couple other troops like that. The Gunnery White doing his thing. But yeah, like I said, it's mostly going to be just fear and terror and army losses and whatnot here. So very well played to my opponent, the Great Falcon. It was definitely a very close and back and forth game. I mean, those Shadow Warriors were really scary. I think one of the biggest turning points was when we were able to isolate Teclis. He kind of ran out into the left a little bit and was fighting amongst some melee, taking a little bit of damage. So we then turned our Colossus and our Gunnery White and all of our firepower to try and take him out, which was very nice. We also survived the initial Silverhelm charge pretty well. I mean, the Silverhelms did delete one of my mortars, which was really solid, and from there they also kind of pressured my back line and forced me back a little bit. But we did essentially take out all three of those Silverhelms relatively effectively with the Colossus and the Overwatch Fire from the black spot, which if you sit far back in your formation, it's not going to get taken out by archers that quick. It's really good against Cav because if they charge it, they have charge defense, anti-large, armor piercing. And yeah, so I think the combination of the Gunnery White and the Colossus were really solid. And the Dogs also did a good job. They got up and around the back. They were a constant threat, so at the very least, you could see that the white lines and a lot of the other melee troops were kind of in a bit of a defensive formation behind the archers because of the Scurvy Dogs, which then takes away the white lines from the front line, which is where they're really going to shine. Like, had those white lines been fighting in the front line sooner, they could have really just done a number, right? They could have pushed through quicker, but the fact that they had to defend the archers in the back because of the Scurvy Dog pressure, I think was a really kind of big point for why the build was successful. But anyways, yeah, it's a very solid build. I mean, certainly a couple different decisions from both of us could have changed the course of the game. But yeah, I definitely like the build quite a bit. I think Shadow Warriors have a very solid niche in this matchup. They're very, very cool. And yeah, Teclis is always a good choice, especially with Nets of Amnitok. Flaming Sword of Ruin can be quite powerful. The Nets, I mean, almost killed my first Colossus. He got it down to about 3,000 HP. I think it was about 25-30%, give or take. So had there been a couple other variables that really put that guy down a little bit lower, that could have been probably game right there. So very well played to my opponent, Falcon, the champion of the Eternal Challenger League Season 1 Finals. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this match, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.